That's the last time I get to do that.
Nice job.
You're welcome.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for sticking around for that wonderful lunch. So, as we always like to begin, a huge thank you to the food haulers. Thank you, Cricket. Our opening words. Spirit of love and of life, be with us in these moments as we gather to do the business of the day. May we remember to listen well, to speak clearly, being fully present to this work and to one another. And gathering to do the business of this congregation, let us always remember its work, to find the lost, to mend what is broken, to offer a word of healing where there is pain and trouble, to speak into the world a word of hope and of peace, a word of justice into a world so in need, and always to speak an alleluia for life in all its glory and grace, an alleluia for life in its worry and its trouble, alleluia for it all. Alleluia and amen.
All right, thank you, Kelly. And thank you, I'll add to Kelly's thank you to everyone for being here on this awesome day. It's beautiful outside, but not so beautiful that you want to leave at this moment. So today, we're just going to be doing a few things. So we're going to be it'll be interesting. So after we approve our minutes, we're going to be having some youth from the Youth Summit on Climate Justice just come and say a few words for a couple of minutes. It's just so happens that they're here using our campus this weekend. And so we thought it'd be really nice just to invite them in, get a few words and get to know as to what they've been doing. So it seemed kind of neat. We're going to vote on candidates for our board along with the foundation's board. We're going to vote on our budgets. If you came to our budget forum a couple of weeks ago, those budgets have been refined and we're going to be presenting that and then ask for a vote on that. We're going to be having also an update on our stewardship campaign. It's not a bullet point here, but Steve Goldberg is going to come up here and talk about our stewardship campaign, along with reminding us all a little bit about Cabaret. It wouldn't be the same if he didn't, right? We'll have a foundation update. Connie Dean is going to be talking to us about that. We'll have an update on the restoration of our roofs. So Dave Weber is going to be popping up to do that. We're going to have an update on our solar. So that is happening finally. It's been years and years and years in the process. So we have a bit of an update on that. Then Doug, Reverend Watkins, is going to come up here and give us an update on our interim period. And then I'm going to just say a couple of things, not too much, but at the end I figure this is my last opportunity. So I should probably introduce myself. My name's Joe Kramer. I'm president of our board. Thank you. And I'm officially coming to the end of my 2-year stint here, so I have just 28 days left, not that I'm counting. And it's been wonderful, but I just had some thoughts I wanted to share with everyone since I have your hopefully undivided attention for one last time. So with that, hopefully you picked up copies of the minutes from our last parish meeting, which was back in February. Does anyone want to move the motion? We have
Gail Bliss, I move we accept the minutes.
Gail Bliss. Motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Rob Savage, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. They passed unanimously. I think we can put down. Thank you very much. So now we're on to the nominees for our board and for the foundation's board of trustees. But first, before we do that, I'd appreciate it if all the current FUS board members, not foundation yet, but board members, if you could just stand up if you're here in presence. I think most of us are here. We have Dorrit, we have Mark, we have Carrie, we have John, myself. Mike was here. Let me see Mike. Mike is here, I thought. I don't see him, but anyhow. So thank you. We've really, what is really fun about being on the board, and I've been through a couple of transitions on the board where we had new members come in, some leave, and it's always, it turns out to be an awesome group of people to be working with. And the diversity of opinions and the way we come at things is probably one of the biggest lessons that I've ever learned, is that we all have different perspectives and they're all incredibly valid. And as you meld them together, you come to far better decisions. So I've really enjoyed working with all of you. Thank you for putting up with me. And I just want to say thank you. So nominee for Secretary of the Board of Trustees. So we recently had our member on the Board of Trustees, Megan, resigned. And she did so for a good reason, because she's right now in India. So it wasn't a planned transition, but it's a transition that occurred within the last month or so. And so John offered to step in as secretary. And now secretary is one of the positions that we explicitly vote on individually, unlike the other board members where we'll do one wide vote. So we have to do an individual vote for John, as long as you all are okay with this, of accepting him as our secretary, and he'll be fulfilling it for just 1 year. He has one more year on his term. So could we have a motion? Name, I want to... Tom Heine. Heine, H-E-I-N-E, right?
John, we know each other.
There's a lot of typing going on. And we want to make sure we get this right. Is there a second? Oh. Liza Monroe. Got that? Okay, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Any opposed? Excellent. All right, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Now we have the nominees for the Board of Trustees. These are 3-year terms from obviously beginning of July to the end of June in 2022, which is hard to believe. And we have a fairly large slate here. So we have Dort. Dort has been a member of our board. This is her second time up as being, and so this would be her second term. We are limited in terms where we can only run twice, and then we must step off. As president, this is really my first term. I'll be off, and then I'm gone. I can't get back involved for a while. Dort is re-upping. She's been an excellent part of our board. Tom, are you here? No. He is not. Okay. Tom is a member who recently joined in the last 4 or 5 years, but has gotten incredibly involved. He's a great example of what would be great if many of us did, where he's at the front desk, he's on the ministry teams, he's ushering, he's doing a lot of things. And when you do that, you get a lot out of the community. So we are very honored that Tom has agreed to yet again up his volunteerism here. Rebecca is here. There you are. Thank you very much. Rebecca also is a fairly new member, but has been getting very involved, has been part of CRE, has children in it, and is becoming a part of the fabric of our community. Brings a lot of great sort of business background and project management, which will be really helpful on the board. And then we also have Creel, is right here. Thank you very much. She is wife, and you might know Matthew Doyle Olson. I sometimes interchange it. Who was our past chair for our capital campaign, and Creel has been very involved. Over the last year, you've been working with our youth, which is a huge job. It's like every weekend you are committed to these students and really helping them out. So thank you for, even after that long year, saying you're going to do some more. So we really appreciate that. So could I have anyone move the motion?
I so moved.
All right, we Nancy Vetters-Schultz. That's right. Only took a couple years. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, Mike. And Mike, what's your last name? Mike Goodman. Thank you. So all in favor for the slate of candidates? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you. Passed unanimously. Well done. Thank you, everyone. The exciting thing about this board is in the next 2 years, they're going to be overseeing this transition that we're in the middle of, and it is going to be exciting. I will mention, oh yeah, thank you. So I saw. So we have 2 youth advisors. So the youth climate. I totally forgot about them, but you also reminded me of something else. So we'll get to the youth climate in a moment. But this year was the second year that we've had youth advisors. So when Rob Savage was president, this was one of the things he really pushed forward on, is to have some youth get involved in our board. It was to give us some perspective of the youth to help, keep us young and engaged in that way, but also to give them an opportunity to see how a nonprofit board works. And they saw a lot. So if you could stand up, I don't know if we have both of Sarah and Jenna, thank you. Thank you very much. And that's a big commitment, because we meet every month, the third Wednesday of every month from 6:30 to 8:30, which is a significant commitment and time in the life of a high schooler. So we really appreciate it. That was big. And this coming fall, we'll be voting on 2 new youth advisors to take their place. We're not doing it tonight or today. So now, Tim, I'm sorry, I got all excited. Come on up. Let's talk about the youth climate. Yeah, please do. This is Tim Cortland. He's
Tim Cortland, yep. Social Justice Coordinator. And one of my goals is to stop climate change and to use your resources and your enthusiasm and support to help us in stopping climate change, or at least, we're not going to stop it, right? But to try to survive it. And these youth are amazing. I'll let them introduce themselves. Some of them are FUS folks, and some of them are from the broader community, but we've been supporting them in a big way here at FUS. We started holding meetings here and using some of my social justice energies to help coordinate their efforts. And they organized this amazing summit this weekend, and they'll tell you a little more about that.
Hi, I'm Jane, and I'm an FUS member.
Hi, I'm Josue. I'm a YCAP member, Youth Climate Action Team.
Hi, I'm Sydney, and I'm an MICT member.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a FUS member, as well as a Madison Youth Climate Team member. So first off, we'd just like to thank everyone at FUS for hosting us and first of all for our summit and also for our meetings and for providing lunch for us this morning. We've had a great time so far this weekend with our summit. Yesterday, we listened to some speakers and participated in some workshops about various environmental issues and or activism. So we can share some highlights from that.
Yesterday, my highlight was listening to speakers.
You have to hold that close to your mouth.
Okay. A highlight for me was listening to speakers. It was really interesting to see everyone's perspective on the issue.
I hosted a workshop. What I did is I went to Chicago a couple months ago, and there was a Lakota tribe there that talked to us and how to use nonviolent direct action, also being an ally and a relative, and I just wanted to share my knowledge and input so we all can learn and grow together with knowledge.
Thanks. My highlight from this weekend so far probably has to be attending workshops. We learned a lot from local scientists or people who work at the UW, as well as business owners, and I feel like we learned a lot of things this weekend that were very helpful.
Just a couple of workshops I went to. One was about fast fashion and consumerism. So we talked about how the fashion industry affects the climate and what we can do personally in our lives to, maybe reduce the clothes that we buy or expand their lifespans. Another one we heard from Anne-Marie Maitre. She's the owner of Bloom Bake Shop, you may know, about social entrepreneurship and owning a small business and working for good. And she told us about how she started Bloom and just using a lot of locally sourced organic ingredients in their food. So we learned a lot in these workshops. This morning, we've also been working on an art project.
we're working on a mural or a banner on canvas to represent kind of the struggle of climate change, and we're painting a background which shows the transition between industrialized, like bad climate, to sort of a better climate, and we're adding words of hope and change to that too.
So one of the workshops I attended, which I liked, was how we can use social media to advertise, climate change and do something about it, and how it could benefit us, but at the same time it could also be, something negative, where we could be targeted if people don't agree to what we agree on.
One of the workshops I attended was hosted by a Next Gen coordinator, is that Joe's title? Who was talking to us about how even if we're not old enough to vote yet, how we can use our voices to help make a change.
All right, we'd just like to thank you all one last time for letting us use this wonderful space and letting us talk to you about what we're doing this weekend.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Rob, for reminding me about that. That's exciting, and that's really one of our big focuses, is this is what we need to be doing, is inviting folks in like this and trying to get more perspective. So, FUS Foundation board members, this is also a 3-year term starting in July through June of 2022. We have Dennis Berkey, sorry, is Dennis? Hey Dennis, sorry about that. Kathy, was Kathy here? I didn't see her. Okay. And Pete. And all of these members are current, thank you, Pete. All of these are current members of the foundation and are re-upping again for their time, which is great when people can continue to volunteer. So, do we have anyone to move the motion? Dort Bergen? Second? All right. Claire Box? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you. Now, Monica.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Karen. It's lovely to see you all. And so many of you also were able to attend the financial forum, which was heartwarming, and thank you for those of you that watched later. If you haven't had a chance, please check out our governance page on the FUS website. You can watch that as many times as you'd like. So many of you already heard this spiel, but for those of you that didn't or are challenged in your short-term memories, we thought we'd quickly walk through the 3 budgets that we have to approve today and call out just a couple of things. So the first thing, okay, so you're looking at the operating budget for next fiscal year. The first thing that I want to point out is the pledge payments. You'll notice that do you all have you can look at the budgets. You can look at the budgets on the back of your agenda. Flip now. So I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to point out in the pledge payments, you can see that there's about a $25K decrease from this current fiscal year to next year. We calculate these the pledge payment line using 3 years of actual pledge income, including this current fiscal year to date. So that's an unfortunate number. The fortunate thing is that we were able to make up most of that income in the other categories. You'll see in particular that the collections and gifts line was increased by about $13,000. That's a result of an upward trend that we're seeing in that area. And then finally, I want to call out in that fund transfers arena where we're seeing about a $1,000 decrease. It's an unsustainable but currently necessary one-time transfer that will largely disappear next year. and we must find ways to replace this income, or we would need to make the unfortunate decision to decrease expenses. So let's take a look at expenditures. I think the only area that I'm going to call out here is the first two lines combined. You'll notice are the personnel compensation and then personnel benefits and taxes. If you combine those two things together, there's about a $1,000 decrease. Given that some of the line items within here were decreased, such as moving expenses and a one-time accounting fee, we were able to find a very modest $10,000 to help us increase staff compensation. It's not enough, right, long term to be able to retain the tremendous staff that we have on staff. But in order to move that up, we need to find other income sources to increase, such as the pledge payments or the unpledged donations or some other creative line items that we could add to our budget. Looking at, oops, I think I skipped one, didn't I? The designated and restricted fund balance. Oops, pardon me. You can see that the estimated fund balance at the end of this current fiscal year will be $71,000. The projected income for next fiscal year is $18,000. We're planning on transferring to the operating fund $43,000, and then expenses that will come straight out of that designated and restricted fund are to the tune of $10K. So we're estimating that the fund balance at the end of next fiscal year will be $36,000. And then last, for the proposed capital fund budget, this was something that we approved last fiscal year. You'll notice it says 5-year capital budget for July of 2016 through June of 2021. We did that because many of you are paying your capital campaign pledges over these 3 years, and many of the projects we're implementing over these next 3 years. So we are showing it to you again because we did make 2 modifications. The capital campaign payments are now at $2.48 million, so they increased from the last time that I last chatted with you a year ago. So we wanted the budget to reflect that, and subsequently in the expense area, we increased the mortgage paydown to reflect that increase in pledge commitments. So that's now $630K. So good news there. Yeah, so motions. So you want to do motions?
All right, thank you, Monica. Thank you. I mean, she's been doing a great job. There's a lot behind the scenes. It's not easy. And so we're lucky to have Monica. So motion. Anyone like to make? John Young. Second?
Second, Tony Reeves.
Tony Reeves? Reeves, right?
R-E-E-V-S.
Oh, V-S. R-E-E-V-S. Sorry, that was B. All right, all in favor of approving our budget? Say aye. Any opposed? All right, it passes. Thank you. Now, I'm going to be calling up Steve Goldberg. Mr. Goldberg. It's all yours.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I've been asked to provide an update on the Stewardship Campaign, and in the next breath, or thought bubble, the Cabaret. There's a relationship between those two. The Stewardship Campaign is designed to reposition and reframe our annual campaign within the context of collective stewardship. And Cabaret is designed for us to use fun as a fundraising tool, and it's one of our biggest sources of fundraising outside of the Stewardship Campaign. So let me begin by telling you that we are getting closer and closer to our $1.2 million goal in the Stewardship Campaign. The good news is that the campaign and the time frame are not over, so we can still have fun making commitments of our stewardship. And in terms of fun, I think some people have enjoyed the positive nature and the language of abundance that we've used rather than please, 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 we need your help. We do, but we're asking in language of abundance instead of urgency or loss. So please, if you haven't had a chance to contribute yet, get around to it when you can, but our target is June 30th because of the beginning of the next fiscal year. However, the campaign continues for a long time even after that. And behind me, you can see how close we're getting. What you don't see up there is that a large number of people who contributed have also made commitments as sustainers. So they've made multi-year commitments, which speaks well for our future financial stability. And more than half of those who have pledged or given so far have given at a level higher than in previous years. So those are all good signs of what lies ahead for us. And by popular demand, Cabaret is occurring in 13 days. To me, it is one of the things that reflects the essence of FUS. And as I've told some of you, my kids still refer to FUS as the Cabaret Church, because that's how they got introduced to the First Unitarian Society. And the theme for this year's Cabaret, which is Saturday, June 15, is game night. And the idea is to use games as a way of circulating the energy and raising the money that Cabaret always brings to FUS. There'll be a live and silent auction. There's an online auction that begins today, and you can access it through the FUS website. You can also buy your tickets, donate the items for the or services or activities for the auction, and see how far we've come in terms of running Cabaret. The games include pinball. I'm excited about that. It's pinball. Just listen to the sounds of a pinball machine in a church. Just think about that. It keeps me awake at night. Be a cakewalk, church bingo, FUS trivia, which some have called, as I said earlier today, a redundant term. Twister, checkers. There'll be a bouncy house for the kids. There's going to be a kids cabaret as well, with a movie and popcorn and games just for the kids, plus a meal for the kids. There'll also be a catered dinner for everybody, provided by Bunkies. And we need volunteers. We really do. If we want this to be successful, the kids have to have a great time so that they too refer to FUS as the Cabaret Church. Think about that. Someday the Board of Trustees will refer to FUS as the Cabaret Church. I can see the signage being changed right now on the front lawn. So we need volunteers to help with serving the beverages, to help with the kids' games, to help with cleanup, a big part of it because we make a big mess here. And the following day, Sunday, Father's Day, we will have service at 10 a.m. in this very room. So we need help cleaning up. I'll just say this, that if you want to hear the entire Cabaret song, come to Cabaret. So we invite you to join us for our game night Cabaret. Thank you.
We have one more slide. There you go. Connie, are you ready? So Connie Beam has been the president of the FUS Foundation for so long she can't remember, and she's still doing it, so thank you.
Hi, everybody. That was great, Steve. Thanks. So the FUS Foundation was created by this congregation back in 1973 to develop some funds that are permanent funds or semi-permanent funds for providing annual funding to FUS for a variety of different things. And as you could see, if you looked at that annual operating budget, you can see that this year the foundation will be contributing $139,000 to the FUS budget. So every year that amount goes up a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. Slowly but surely, the funds are being built through investment and through additional contributions to the foundation. Primarily, those gifts come to us after people have passed away. So they're primarily planned gifts. And you can see from the report that was out front as we came in, we have a number of different funds that support a variety of different activities here at the FUS. The biggest ones would be the Society Fund, which gives the board the option to use that money however it sees fit. The Stoneholders Fund, which provides funding for the building and the campus. And those are the two primary ones, but you can see we also have funds that support social justice and music and a variety of other things. And the youth, that's a wonderful fund as well. So I would like to thank all of our board members. There's 9 of us, and we meet 4 times a year, and you are invited to come to each and every one of those meetings. We do post our July or August, it's usually in August, but this year it's in July. That's our annual meeting where we elect our officers, and we do post, we put that in the red floors to make sure everybody knows it's happening. And I would like to say, well, right now we're managing a portfolio of about $2.8 million, and our policy is, and we work with the FUS trustees to come to an agreement on a policy for distributing funds from those funds is 5% of the market value as of December 31st, averaged over the last 3 years. So we look at the market value at December 31st through the last 3 years. We average that, and then we take 5%. And there might be one fund in there that doesn't distribute that way, but in overall, all of them distribute about 5% of their market value as of December 31st over the last 3 years. Anyway, we're really thrilled that our assets have grown. We do manage our own funds. We have a number of professional people on our board who are professional investors. I have a background in development. We have a number of attorneys on board. We have a CPA and a financial wizard on our board who's our treasurer. And so we don't have term limits on our board, but it's because we actually do the work of the foundation. We don't have staff. Although I would like to say a very big thank you to Monica for all of the support that she provides for our board, and to also, we use numbers for nonprofits, which helps us so that we have some nice cross-checks on writing checks, and so it isn't just us who's got our hands and our eyes on the money that's coming and going. We've got some nice checks on that, checks and balances on our money. I would also like to say that in the past few years, the board of trustees has actually started expressing some sincere interest in participation in the board, and I would like to thank Rob and Joe and Dorrit and the other board trustee members who come to our meetings, who really want to be involved with us in helping us grow the funds. And sometime in the coming year, we're going to start, I shouldn't say the foundation, but a member of the foundation board, Dennis Berkey, is going to lead an effort to reinvigorate the planned giving program here at First Unitarian. I'm thinking it might come out as a ministry team, but anyway, Monica and Doug and Kelly and Cheryl, are you still here? Cheryl's over there. She's awesome. We're going to start to actually have a program to remind people that you can leave a gift to FUS in your estate plan. And if you so choose, you can leave it to the foundation, and you can specify one of the funds we have, and it will help us. It's like you're paying your membership forever and ever and ever. Your annual, it's true. I mean, you think of it that way. If you leave a gift to the foundation, we invest money, it kicks off 5% every year, and you're paying that annual gift every single year for as long as we're here. So, are there any questions that I can entertain? Yeah.
I'm still somewhat new here. Do you have guidelines for investing along social justice guidelines?
We have investment policy, and, oh, sorry, repeat the question. Do we have an investment policy, basically, and does it address social justice kinds of issues? We've been down that road many times, and our investment policy, I'm happy to share with you at any time, but right now it focuses basically on what percentages of investing in bonds and equities or stocks. And we also invest in microfinance. We have a fair amount of money in microfinance. But in terms of actually picking social justice funds, it's always been problematic for us because just like everyone here, we all have our opinions about what we can and can't do. And it is a regular topic of discussion for us at our board meetings. I think we've actually had 2 meetings in a row where it didn't come up, which is really amazing. But we do discuss it all the time, and we do our very, very best to work in those kinds of things. Any other questions?
Joyce. Oh, Janice.
Any other questions? Yeah, Tom. It is so easy to make a planned gift. Thank you for asking. All you have to do is put something in whatever your planned document is, whether it's a will, a trust, or if you've got an account for which you can name a beneficiary, like an insurance policy or a retirement fund, or even a bank account for that matter. And you can name the First Unitarian Society Foundation, and or one of our, you could say the First Unitarian Society Foundation Stonehauler Fund. And it's always good to put our name and our address and our tax ID number, which will be available soon on the FUS website. And we'll also be starting to ramp up a little bit about making more information available. You do have a choice. You always have choices. You can leave your money directly to First Unitarian. And in that case, the Board of Trustees will make a decision about how that money will be used. But if you leave your money to the foundation, then your gift will be put into an endowment or an endowment type of fund that will be invested and will kick off that annual income every year. So those are, if you want to make a gift directly to FUS, you're absolutely more than welcome to do that. So it's just, what do you want to do? What is the need at the time? So, Steve.
Connie, is there a goal for the targeted amount in the endowment?
Is there a goal for the amount in the...
Yeah, like by the end of the next decade?
Yeah, yeah. We've never set a goal for building the endowment assets. We are, dependent primarily on people including us in their estate plan. And I guess the more we promote that, the more likely it is that our assets will grow, and then obviously every single year our contribution to the operating budget will grow as well. So it would be lovely to see that annual contribution at like $250,000. I don't think we'll ever be Yale or Princeton or anything like that, but we certainly have a very, very good start. So. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. Next up, the roof, the perennial discussion.
The roof and restoration. And before I start on that, I've been asked to announce that we have beaucoup leftovers from the luncheon, and please take some home. It's all arranged on a table out in the commons. So, the roof. I'm happy to report that the roof has never been stronger. All the internal work has been completed without mishap or difficulty. The weather's good, so the work on the outside has recommenced, and you can see that there's a black area on the left side of the hearth room up to the chimney, and that's where the copper's been removed so far, and the waterproofing has been laid down. And that's going to continue across, and as they work up the big slope, they're going to straighten out the dips in the surface, which, yeah, I see Tom, our junior stone hauler, Tom calls himself a pebble hauler because his parents were stone haulers. So they will be adding a layer of plywood on boards to smooth out the flat spots in the roof, so it won't collect water anymore, and what water gets through will not penetrate into the roof. The other bit of good news is we are at or under budget, and we're through the big part of the surprise area. You know, we made it this far without big surprises, and the structural work was the highest risk. We have found out that the soffits on the north side of the loggia are that asbestos cement board again, so we'll be doing an abatement. And other than that, if you haven't been inside the landmark, go in so you can glory in the restored prow, which is not drafty, and the whole room's a lot warmer, and you can see the colors that were original, or at least the first colors. You know, when we do color examination, we can only go down to the first layer. So everything is the colors that were there in 1950. And if you have questions, you know, buttonhole me afterwards. And we can talk some more. As you know, I can go on.
Thank you, Dave. All right, now another fun part, the solar project. So we have had a group of dedicated members that for years, ever since I've been involved in governance, have been talking about solar, getting solar up on our roof. And the dedication of the group has been phenomenal. Encountering barriers and problems, getting over the problems and moving on only to find another problem, and et cetera, et cetera. So it took time, but we're here. So Jay, please fill us in. Jay is part of the sustainability ministry team, which started out as a task force. We converted to a ministry team because it's going to be ongoing now. You heard of the financial forum if you were here, but they've already reduced our energy usage by 25%, which is huge. And the solar array is going to take up some more energy. So please.
Good afternoon. I'm Jay Martin and a member of the FUS Sustainability Ministry team. And let me start again. Good afternoon. I am Jay Martin and a member of the FUS Sustainability Ministry team. If there are members here, would you please stand up so everybody can see who you are? Today is my pleasure to first update you on the solar installation and second ask you to consider investing in solar bonds supporting both the FUS solar program and solar itself in Wisconsin. Finally, I will quickly summarize what we have been up to with, I'm supposed to stay under 2 minutes, but finally I will quickly summarize what we've been up to with the solar FUS campus energy use and carbon footprint. First, the solar installation update. First, the new roofs for the classrooms and the B&C wing have been installed. Consequently, 79 kilowatts of solar panels producing about 105,000 kilowatt hours per year will be installed in August. This is something certainly worth celebrating. To put the effect of the new solar system on our sustainability goals in perspective, we are immediately eliminating CO2 emissions from the FUS by about 163,695 pounds per year. Over years, this will accumulate to a total almost 5 million pounds, excuse me. This is equivalent, or in other words, about 2,400,000 pounds of coal will not be combusted. Equivalent carbon sequestration of 87.4 acres of U.S. forest per year, or more than 4 square miles of forest over 30 years. Immediately, it reduces the net FUS electricity purchased from the grid by more than 25%. And savings of approximately $11,000 per year in today's dollars once the solar panels are owned by the FUS. I need to mention Eric Sundquist and his effort. He could not be here today, but he has been leading this solar activity. His efforts at getting this accomplished here have been worthy of note in time, in inventiveness, and good old getting the job done. Without Eric's efforts and the fantastic support of the FUS leadership and administration, the solar install could not have been accomplished. As you are no doubt aware, financing of the solar addition to the FUS has been creative, smart, and complex. There's no way I'm going to describe it today. The big and good news, however, is that Mark and Nancy Vetter-Schultz have stepped up to become the tax sponsor for the solar install. I wonder if they would stand. We certainly appreciate their willingness to do so. Second, regarding the solar bonds, there is approximately $50,000 in bond investment left with Legacy Co-op for the FUS community to completely cover the FUS solar install. Even if the FUS community does not purchase this amount, the solar project is not in jeopardy because the financials of Legacy Co-op are and have been conservative. Any investment in the Legacy solar bonds, however, support solar in Wisconsin, further helping to mitigate the effects of climate change. We think that it is a good thing to support. Further, the bonds themselves represent a good investment, supporting a great activity while returning as much as 6% per year for a $10,000 investment. Also note that the bonds themselves can be purchased and then donated to the FUS. Doing so provides continuing funds for the FUS and further supports activities like these. Finally, FUS campus energy use and carbon footprint. Significant efforts by members of the FUS, including Mark Schultz and Ken Ragland, assisted by Mike Barnett of the Sustainability Energy Group and our own Tom Miskelly, have significantly reduced FUS campus electricity use by more than 25% since 2015. Kudos to them once again. We anticipate that we will continue to have an impact on reducing campus footprint through additional HVAC improvements, lighting changes, and other conservation activities, including transportation. Ultimately, to get to zero carbon footprint, we're going to have to consider many different strategies. We expect to be in dialogue with you about these strategies, and as always, we are interested in your ideas. In closing, let's celebrate this accomplishment, and let's also embrace the challenge. Remember the 2.4 million pounds of coal that will stay in the ground because of our new solar panels? That is a lot of coal. In fact, 2.4 million pounds of coal will fill about 11.6 coal cars in one of those trains rolling up the Mississippi today. We have a lot of work to do. So we celebrate what we've done and what we have to do. Thank you.
And next Sunday, Jay, we have a program? Yes, okay, cool. At 11:30 here, we're going to be discussing just the solar project. Anyone interested in the bonds, participating in that, please attend.
Can you tell us where they'll go?
Oh, yeah, right over there. We're not going to be able to see them. So that was part of the evolution of where and how we put solar. We're not putting it anywhere that anyone can really see, so it's not impeding any type of view, but it's going to be on the B wing. And that's actually why the B wing, we need to replace the roof, because it was leaking and you couldn't put the solar there until you replaced it. So it's just going to be over there. You really won't see it. I think, are we still going to have some by the entrance so you can see a little bit? We're going to have some by the entrance purposely angled so you can see that we have solar. But otherwise you're not going to see any of it. All right. The intern period. Doug, are you ready?
No.
Well, we're ready for you.
So this is a chance for me to talk a little bit about what will happen in the future with the interim period, and we'll go through some of the big projects and tie in some of the timeline. Let me put in a plug that we fairly recently on the website, there's a section that deals right now with interim ministry. It will probably eventually also transition into the search, but so basically transition, and there is a timeline on it that you can view that will be updated regularly, that gives you a sense in more detail than I'm going to be able to do today of the overall flow of the coming weeks and months in our work. So there's more information available. In general, these are the areas that we'll be working on, and they both are reflective of the charge to ministry that I received from the very beginning, that any interim would have received from the board, doing some of their own reflection. It reflects some of the information that a lot of the information that you've told me you think is important for our time together and for this congregation to do its best work in the world. And also I wanted to point out, because there's a very distinctive component to mid-size and larger congregation search processes that impacts this as well, is that it happens that all of these areas would be on the list anyway. But in larger congregations, it's especially important to address some of the issues that we know are really crucial to the strongest ministerial candidates feeling like it is a good setting for them to come to. One thing that is true here is that, and it's true of the other larger congregations I've served, is that with one exception, the candidate that ended up as their top choice talked to me long before the start of the search in my first few months and began to ask questions. In smaller congregations, mid-size and smaller, often the candidates learn about the congregation the first time when the congregational record comes out. In most cases, the people that will look at this congregation are already looking at you, and most of them will only throw their hat in the ring for because they're already serving a congregation. And so they are looking for the next step that is the right move for them to continue their development in ministry. They will not tell their congregation that they're in search, because if it doesn't work out, they will stay where they are. They really are choosing a few congregations that are the right fit. And so they call and they talk to the other clergy in the area, they talk to the district in the region, they talk to Kelly, they talk to anyone they can now to find out what's going on in the congregation. And so a lot of the work that we're doing is to really help those strongest candidates see important work in the next months that will say to them that this is a stronger place for them to come to. Because they'll be interested in making sure that, one, that their vision of ministry, how they want to minister in their relationship with the congregation, is consistent with the congregations they're looking at. They'll want to look and make sure that the congregation has a strong sense of who they are and what they want to do in their future together as a congregation. They want to make sure that the infrastructure in the way that the congregation operates is healthy, especially in terms of its staffing and its committee and team structure. They'll want to look at the financial health of the congregation and feel like that they're at least working on improving that sense of health. And finally, they'll be very interested in what sort of relationship with the larger world that the congregation wants and what will happen And the Cabaret, they'll certainly want to know about that. So here are some of the things that we'll be doing in the coming months. We are in the midst of the history and legacy work, which gives the congregation a chance to reflect with each other on the lived history, the stories that are important to this congregation. We've had 2 different settings that invited congregants to come and talk about that with each other. We will soon be publishing and sending out to people the opportunity to do an online reflection, an electronic reflection, for you to tell some stories about what you think are important components of history and legacy. And the real point of that is to glean from that the essential stories that are still very much alive in who you are now, and to make sure that those remain important to the story and the idea of who you will be in the future. And so they really steep the work in a sense of history. We have been working on governance, and those are basically all the systems that help us be clear about whose job it is and how to work together in terms of the weekly, daily operation of the congregation, who sort of holds the vision and mission of the congregation, and how to do all of that work so that the congregation remains creative and dynamic in its work. And so we have been, you are one of the congregations that Dan Hodgkiss worked with to do the governance revamping and rethinking. Dan has been my coach for the last year, and we worked on a variety of things, including me working with the board. He will come in September to work with the board to do some updating based on what we've learned that has implications for the rest of the congregation. We will, and I'll talk a little bit about this in a second, we have been looking at the issue of how, for the future, what sort of understanding of the way that authority is shared. And that really includes how the congregation talks with each other, how the staff and the ministers work with each other, the board and the congregation, and definitely on a multi-minister, multi-clergy team, the understanding of how clergy work with each other. And basically, is there one person that is primarily the lead minister that holds the primary authority, or is it some sort of more team shared authority model? And I'll talk a little more about that in a moment. And another thing that came up very quickly, that's an important component of the health of the congregation, is for us to work on the staff, both in terms of how they work together, but also working on staff morale. It has been something that has been a struggle for your staff for many years now. And so we've been working over the last months. This summer we'll do a retreat, and we're working on supervision to really revitalize that sense of energy and satisfaction in the job that they do for you. And you have an incredible staff, so we want to care for them deeply. So, yes. So obviously we are all very concerned about the stewardship, the financial health of the congregation. And so one of the things that we have been working on already, and it really infused the energy of the campaign that we just finished, is to really help us rethink about how we talk with each other about finance and what we believe is possible in this congregation. We'll continue to do that work by learning from some of what happened in this last campaign. This summer, I will be working, I'll be talking with Vale Weller, who is the Congregational Giving Director for the UUA. She works a lot with our larger congregations and knows more than anyone else about what works well for large congregations in terms of stewardship and what doesn't. We have already, Kelly and I and other folks within the congregation have already been in conversation, but she will help us find the best consultant to work this summer into the fall to rethink next year's campaign and really learn from and strengthen how we work with you. And it won't be just any one specific thing, but a whole series of strategies for us to work together. She will come and work with us, both the board and leaders, in November of this coming fall, as well as be with you in worship and preach on November 9th and 10th. So she is really very inspiring. If you do not know who she is an amazing minister as well as someone who works for the UUA. We have been very intentional this year at looking at the compensation for our staff and making sure that the model that we use is one that is fair and equitable. As a larger congregation, you have more and more people who move across the country as consistent religious professionals, everything from administrators to religious educators and music directors who come across the United States to serve this congregation specifically. And so it is more and more important that you are competitive in terms of what you offer in compensation. And so we have used the UUA guide because every minister and most religious professional will look at that as their way of understanding whether you're paying fairly. And so we try to make sure that we are doing that work with our current staff and thinking about it for the future. And in general, trying to be very transparent with the staff in terms of how we are doing financially and the decisions we're making, being more transparent with you about how you are doing as a congregation, and making sure that you have the information to know what needs to happen. It really is a shared leadership that we have to have together in order for this to be a strong congregation in stewardship. So we are doing our part to help invite you to do that, and we will continue to. Another crucial part of this is how you understand your relationship with the clergy, and the shared ministry even beyond that. And so in general, a lot of the congregational engagement has to do with asking you to think about who you are as a congregation and talk with each other about your vision for who you are and how you want to relate to the clergy and your staff and your lay leaders in the future. That really is meant to build a sense of where you have common ground, where you disagree, and giving yourself some time together to reflect on that and see what it says to you for the future. So all of the town halls that we do, the various experiences, that primarily asks you to talk with each other and listen to each other and let that very honest sharing of what's important change how you understand who you are now as a congregation. And that tends to happen in a way that can't happen any other time. There's more honesty about that conversation in the transition time. So it's important, and I hope you will, in the coming months, we'll do another gathering in November around vision and mission, but before that, in October, we will invite any group within the congregation to do some exploration in terms of what you believe to be at the heart of this congregation, and we'll utilize that information and share it with you in sermons, etc., in the workshop. So I hope you'll spend some time with that. We are in the process now of putting together a task force that will go out and explore some congregations that have various ways that clergy teams work together. We'll look at models of congregations that are dynamic and successful in their work with each other and try to learn from them. Learn what has been successful, what has been a challenge, and how they've helped the congregation understand the dynamics of their clergy team. And the charge of that task force is to talk with some of those most successful congregations, find out that information, and report it back to us. So in the fall, we will have a gathering that will give you some of the information that we've learned about what makes clergy teams of many types, everything from some version of a lead minister with other associate assistant ministers to team ministries where people are more co-equals in terms of how they share authority. Part of the reason we're doing this is in my conversations with you, you are very passionate in your views of what your future clergy team should be, and you do not agree with each other. And you are incredibly intense and wonderful on both sides of that. And so before any clergy person would think, I really want to serve there, we need to have a more cohesive understanding. You may not fully agree, but you need to come to a place where you have a better sense of what you want in the future for your clergy team. That alone will take some time and some good thought and goodwill with each other. And so that's the multi-minister task force. The other area that's really important is that this is an important time for us to think about your relationship outside of this congregation. You are a resource congregation, meaning that both within the larger Madison and Wisconsin area and in the UUA, people will look to you and come to you to understand how to do things and to learn from you. And so we want to really take that relationship seriously. Our transition team, and I will say thank you to them in a few minutes, are in the process of putting together a community engagement exercise that they'll invite you to join them on some interviews. We will choose a variety of community organizations, everything from social justice to arts related to educational related and beyond, and go to them and ask them what they know about us and what they think about our work and what they believe is essential that we know about them in terms of thinking about future ministry. And so we will invite you to go out into the community with our transition team and explore with them what the community says about us. And we'll also be working in the coming months on thinking about how the congregation is doing in terms of intercultural competency. And that's basically the ways that you think, the ways that you feel, and the ways that you act that lead to effective and appropriate communication with other people, with people of other cultures. And so your ability both to work within the congregation with diverse cultures, but also to be able to go out into the world and work more effectively and be more welcoming and more hospitable. So a lot of that work will actually, we will do a lot of the focus of that between now and the end of the winter of this next year into 2020. Because in the spring of 2020, and actually probably beginning in winter, we will really start transitioning into the search process. So your consultant, your transitions coach, Jen Crow will come and talk to you as a congregation and preach about the transition process, the search process, and tell you a little more about that. That will probably happen in like February and March. And so in 2020, in the spring, you will start putting together your search committee. The board is finalizing that process. They will soon tell you in detail what that will look like. But basically, they will ask everyone's input to put together that search team, and we'll put together a balanced and effective team from your input. They're looking for people that are able to devote about 400 hours total to the process, which I know sounds like a really hard sell. However, those 400 hours, a good portion of them occur during times that people can fit into their own life schedule. So the 400 hours are not all meetings where you have to be in the same place at the same time. An awful lot of that, it would be the individual search team members going off to do projects in their own time frame, utilizing their own skills, etc. But it is a huge time commitment, and so we take very seriously that people know what they're getting into and that they feel like they're really called to do that work. It is over a year, right. It's actually under a year, really. It'll begin this summer. We'll put them together, but they don't really begin the work until they look at the materials and they begin to, but it will be done by a year from then in the spring. So, but remember, we're talking a whole, by the time we get through next fall, you will really be in the throes of some of the energy around a search. So then, in the summer, they will, I got a little bit ahead of myself. So, in the summer, they will get training, and then they will put out to you a survey so that they can find out all sorts of things, who you are theologically, what's important to you, what you're looking for in a minister. They will share those results with you as well as putting that out far and near, but that will really help them in putting together the packet. They will also not just rely on the survey, they will do various kinds of gatherings with you, cottage meetings, structured sort of gatherings, open town halls, etc. Just about anything they think that will be effective to learn what it is that you want, who you think you are as a congregation, and what you want in your next clergy team. And so they will do their work to represent you most diligently. So then they will put all that material together in a congregational record that will need to be ready to go by December of 2020. That basically is the first thing that people will see, but again, a lot of the people who will be interested in you will have already done their own research, but that will include, among other things, a more definitive description of what that ministry will look like, and a ton of information. And then they can, if they're interested, click to have their information shared with your search team. So the search team will look through those potential candidates, glean them down usually to 3 folks, and in the winter of 21, they will begin to do some work meeting with those people, hearing them preach, and choosing a single candidate. So that by the time that we get to the spring of 2021, they will put before you a single candidate. You will know a lot about that person. They will come for a candidating week. That's usually in April or May of 2021. You will have an intense and amazing and wonderful week together. And at the end of that time, you will have a congregational vote, and almost certainly call that person. And then the work is to prepare you to successfully work with that new clergy team. So the only other thing I would say is that this has been a very energized transition time in the last year, and you have had a transition team that has worked very, very hard, harder than any transition team, to be available to you and help you understand this. And so I want to do a shout out to your transition team, to Laura Aronson, to Carol Rowan, to Dawn Regenbogen, to Alan Knox, to Lori Newman, to Amy Kell, and for several months, Jake Blazeski, and so Blaschek. And so I want to say thank you to all of those people. Bravo.
That's weird. There's a slide that just is not showing. That's okay. The search and call? Oh, it is. It just, oh, you can't. It's faded. Okay, it looks different here. We're all good. Thank you, Doug. Yeah, Doug has been phenomenal. I know it's in working with Doug and getting to know what a transition means, which even though we read books, we had a task force put together that ran some workshops, and really it wasn't until we were in it that we really understood it. And I think everyone here, if we were 2 years behind us with the knowledge we have, it would have gone a little bit differently. But it's still moving forward, and it's thank you, and it's really in large part due to Doug. So, outgoing words. So I got your attention just for a few minutes. Then after this, you can kind of ignore me, except as chair of nominations, I'm going to be knocking on doors. But I just want to say, really just take a moment, say thank you. It has been a huge honor being president of the board. I can't even begin to describe everything that I've learned and experienced over the last 2 years. And had I known that when I said yes and was voted in, I would do it all over again. I really want to thank you all. I have come to know our community far better than I ever imagined, from our governance model to our individual members, and I have really come to appreciate our community more, and I'm very happy that this is my and my family's spiritual home. So thank you. But with that, I just want to share a few things, including what I think, since I have the mic and I got your attention, who I think maybe should be our next called minister. But first, I want to talk about a couple of other things. So our governance model. So recently, some of you might have coming to be a little bit more aware as to what our governance model is and what our board does. Some of it might be from a negative perspective, but the fact is that we have this form of governance where we trust and we give power to our board of trustees. And in a congregation as large as ours, we need that. We can't be a place where every single member is involved in every single decision. It just can't happen. We're too large. We would fail if we ever did that. And so the board is the way that we members, and when I join all of you in a few weeks here out there, as we members, is through the board that we stay in touch with our congregation, that we set our vision, that we stay in touch with staff, and we make sure that things are happening as we would like them to happen, because truly, this entity is an entity of the members. Without all of us, it just does not exist. And so we must keep that in mind. I mean, our ministers are vital, our staff are very important, but we have to keep in mind that without us, it doesn't matter. So everything about us is really about us, about our membership. And hopefully many of you have noticed that the board has been trying to respond to your concerns. One of the major concerns that we most recently had was communication around the interim period. There wasn't enough out there, so we've been trying to up the ante. The board has been tabling, we have been trying to show up after services to answer questions. The transitions team that works with Doug has been out there, so we've been trying to really respond to members' concerns, so please keep that coming. You must let the board know if there are things that you want changed, because that's truly how they will get changed. And the most important part of our governance model, unfortunately, and something that I've experienced and I've seen, is one that we ignore. And I feel that we have to pay more attention to, and that is our nominations committee. Now, Rob Savage has been chair. I'm going to be chair. As the past president, you must be chair for 2 years of the nominations. And I've seen year after year after year, oftentimes when there are moments where we need members for committees and when we need board members, we're struggling and we're sort of scrambling. And we need to change that, because the thing we have to understand as members, that nominations committee is supposed to be the clearinghouse for all of us. It's supposed to be the place where those that want to get involved or those that we're trying to drag in to be involved are cleared through and then put up for nomination and put into committees or recommended to the board. It is that point, that is the nexus of our power as members. If you want to have any type of voice in this community, we need a strong nominations committee. Rob has been, and if you've seen all the letters that Rob has put out there, all the notices, that's not enough. We need to continue to do more, and we're trying to figure this out. So as the next chair and coming to nominations, I'm making an ask, a plea to all of you. If anyone has thoughts as to how we can improve this, how we can get more member engagement within governance, come and talk to me. Better yet, join nominations with me. Because it is vital, and I think that is something that we've dropped. I mean, this is, as I look through our bylaws and experience our governance model, this nominations committee is the point that it all begins. And we just haven't been paying attention. Rob and I have. We've been working our tails off on that, but we need to do more. So please keep that in mind. And to that end, and this will be on a slide, in fact, let me just put up the slide at the bottom here. We have a new Gmail account, FUSnominations@gmail. So any thoughts, email it, it comes to me. If you want to be nominated for something, email. If you know of someone that we should approach, please email, because we will try to get that going. Now, getting involved, I realize I'm preaching to the choir about getting involved in FUS, but what all of us here need to do is the members that aren't here, the members that we know of, that we think should become more engaged, we need to grab them and talk to them. We need to try to get them more engaged, because it is our job as members. It's not staff. It truly isn't Rob and myself as the chair of nominees. It is the membership's responsibility to help grow engagement, and we must do that. And if we do that, things will be great. So recently, I just have a few more comments here. I apologize. Thank you for sticking with me. But recently, many of you have heard that the board have voted to extend the interim. We decided to extend it by 1 extra year. And while this decision truly caught us all by surprise, even us on the board, it's a very quick turnaround from the time that we realized we needed an extra year to the time when we did the vote, because it was a certain period that we had to decide at that moment if we were going forward as was or if we were going to extend it. and we extended it. And so it's important for us now to move beyond the decision of extension to taking advantage of that extra year. We purposely gave us an extra year because frankly we needed it. We truly needed it. We needed this time, the next 12 months of coming together, talking together, solving differences, understanding differences, and let me take back solving. We're not going to solve everything. But we can at least come together and come to some good compromise about how we want this place to be in the future. And this is the time to do it. We don't get this opportunity too often. The last time we had this opportunity was over 30 years ago. I was still in high school. I didn't even know FUS existed. Let's take this opportunity that we've been given. We don't need to rush. What we need now is the opportunity to think about what we as members want to become. What is our vision? We can do this right now without someone peering over our shoulder saying how he or she would want it to happen. Because it doesn't matter. It's how we want it to happen. And so we don't debate anymore about the timing. What we debate about is what we're all thinking and what we all want. So please, it is absolutely vital that we take advantage of it. So, and this gets into an important point, and I think it's something that, as a congregation as we are, where we're member-led, we get this opportunity that many congregations don't. So I grew up in the Catholic faith. When it came time to switch out our priests, one went away and one just popped up. No discussion. The discussion afterward was complaining about who this person was, who the Pope sent, and all that. But that was it. We have a different opportunity here. We can change things. And something that I noticed about 4 or 5 years ago when I was a member of the Finance Committee, our numbers have been going down. Pledge dollars have been staying or going up. But I saw this trend, and in business, if you see this trend, you get scared. There is a trend where the numbers were going down of the pledge units consecutively. It was being glossed over because everyone was stepping up and giving more. So it wasn't we weren't concerned with this, but as someone that looks at numbers all the time, I was very concerned. So I asked the board and they granted it. We had the Growth Task Force established. We ran that for a couple of years. We've implemented some of those changes, but we can't stop there. This is the time to ask ourselves, and I don't know what the answer is, but that question is, are we relevant? How do we engage in our community? Why are our numbers going down? Is it because we haven't changed? Because we changed too much? I don't know what the answer is, but the fact of the matter is numbers are going down. So we need to look at ourselves, we need to look at our external community, and we need to decide how do we get better engaged. And the end result, and some people don't like this, are numbers. When we see our membership go up, we will know we're hitting the right spot. And we've got to keep that in mind. Thank you. So, that's been going on for over 8 years. So enough that 4 or 5 years ago I saw this trend. And it was a scary trend. At some point it's going to drop. Okay, this is how these trends always go. You get this little tick and then there's a cliff. We may be at the cliff now or not. Back then I was paranoid we were at the cliff and we weren't, thankfully. It's been going on long before. It's been happening for almost a decade. In fact, if you look at the numbers, as soon as we built this place, the numbers started going down. So that's the way it is. I mean, if you build it, they won't necessarily come. So, and I don't want to leave you with doom and gloom. This place is awesome. And what I do want people to keep in mind, and there are some people that have a little bit of consternation around the fact we don't have a senior minister, we don't have this leader. Who cares? We have us. Honestly, I don't care. So what type of called minister, and you might be seeing where I'm going with this. This is a huge question. Who is going to be our next called minister? I first want to give you a little bit of background as to why I'm here. So a friend of mine for years kept harping on me, you must come and hear this guy Michael talk. He's an awesome preacher. This friend and I were exchanging, this is my spiritual outlet at the time, this is an individual, and he kept saying, this is where you need to come. I came, and I kept coming. I kept coming for Michael. It was awesome. I would come in the door, sneak in, as soon as service was over, I'd sneak out, making sure not to make eye contact, because that's vital. Because if I looked at anyone, someone would want to talk to me about why are you here, what's your spiritual, whatever, and I wanted nothing to do with it. I was coming here just to hear a lecture, is what I told my friends. Now, fast forward 10 years, I did that for about a decade. I had a family, and we wanted to take our children into a religious experience, so obviously we're here. We came here, and we enrolled in CRE, where then suddenly I get this email saying, if you're a CRE parent, you should volunteer. Go backwards about 2 or 3 decades where I was Catholic. If something from church came in saying you ought to do this, you did it, because either you're going to be struck down with a bolt of lightning, or the guilt was going to wear you out that you might as well just do it. So I volunteered. I got involved. I got involved in finance. That led to chairing finance, to the Growth Task Force, to this now. And what I found over these last 6 years is my involvement with our community has become the center point. I'm no longer here to come and hear who's preaching. You all are good, don't worry, I love it. But I'm here because of all of you. I'm not here because of who is up here. I'm here because of who is all sitting in these chairs. And this is where we need to be focused. As long as we're here, it doesn't matter who's there. So to that end, as I've been thinking over the years, and like, who would I want as a minister? What do we need? The honest answer, and I feel a little sacrilegious saying this, but I honestly don't care. I just don't care. If you all are here providing me the support that I need, that you all have been doing, it doesn't matter. So this is the time we need to come together, decide what is our vision, what is our future, and we need to write the job description for the person that fits our needs. And that's who the next called minister is going to be. It's the person that fits our needs. That's it. So, that's about it. I just want to say thank you. So with that, I just want to say one thing, and now my watch has ended. Game of Thrones, thank you.
Joe.
Uh-oh.
So, before I do the closing words, we want to give a little token of our appreciation to Joe as he leaves his incredible ministry to us as president. We have actually many past presidents that are part of this congregation, and they meet regularly. And those who were presidents during times of transition, and you would think there wouldn't be that many of you, but it's amazing that they're between this congregation and other congregations, that they talk about how important and life-changing being president during a time of change is. And so, Joe, your work with us, your courage, your vision, your hard work, your good heart, all of those things, you have really helped this congregation in one of its most powerful times and most significant times. And your service will change the future of this congregation for good. So bless you for everything you've done. And so a little token of our appreciation and our love and our gratitude for your hard work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It's been great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
And Joe Cherry wrote this: if we have any hope of transforming the world and changing ourselves, we must be bold enough to step into our discomfort, brave enough to be clumsy there, loving enough to forgive ourselves and others. May we, as a people of faith, be granted the strength to be so bold, so brave, and so loving. Thank you, everyone.